Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We'll call the February 3rd, 2022 council meeting to order. I would ask for everyone to rise for the invocation and the pledge. Our invocation will be given by Pastor Brent Reeves from Calvary Church. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Let's bow and let's pray together. Father, tonight as we begin this meeting, we give you thanks for who you are, and we pray particularly for the Clearwater City Council tonight, for the mayor and for the council members. God, as they work toward a vision for the future of our city and a plan to make it a reality. I pray that as they serve in this position, that they would serve the good of the people of Clearwater, and we give you thanks tonight for their service and efforts toward the well-being of our city. God, we know, according to your word, that every good and perfect gift comes down from above. And yet we know also that they often come through those who lead and serve us as the public. And so we pray tonight that you would guide in the particular discussions and the decisions that will take place in this meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Reeves. I appreciate you coming out this evening and those inspiring words. I want to introduce the dais. On my far right is City Manager John Jennings.
Good evening.
Vice Mayor Hamilton.
Good evening.
Councilmember Albritton.
Good evening.
Councilmember Beckman.
Good evening.
Councilmember Bunker.
Good evening.
And our City Attorney, David Margolis.
Good evening.
I would ask if there are any amendments to the minutes of the January 20th, 2022 meeting.
Move approval of the minutes as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. At this time, I'd like to open it up to citizens to be heard. If there are any citizens in the audience that would like to speak to any item not on the agenda, if you could fill out a comment card, please come forward. And we ask you to state your name and respectfully ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening. Excuse me. I'm Norm Bild. I'm a longtime veterans advocate. Also means I'm just kind of old. And I'm here to thank City Manager John Jennings. I wrote him a letter, and in regard to that, I got letters back regarding some veterans issues, some other things. I was sorry to hear he was sick. I'm glad to see you're well, and I think you have your priorities. We all do. You've got a lot on your plate. You're coming home very strong. You know what you're doing, and we'll get to these issues whenever you feel like we should, and I thank you for this written.
Thanks for coming out tonight, Mr. Bill. Sir?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager, council people. My name is Chris Van Sloten. I've been a Clearwater property owner and resident for about 37 years. In 1971, there was a musical group, the 5-man electrical band, and their signature song was "Sign, Sign, Everywhere's a Sign." Blocking out the scenery, breaking my mind. Do this, don't do that. Can't you read the sign? And I think there are simply too many signs in the city of Clearwater. For example, on the corner of Betty Lane and Drew Street, also on the corner of Betty Lane and MLK, there's a sign, Jack Russell Stadium. I think Jack Russell Stadium went down about 15 years ago. On Court Street, west of the courthouse, do not turn left, or left turn only. A couple feet later, the same sign. As you're leaving Island Way onto the causeway, within a stretch of about 50 feet, there are 3 signs. No motor vehicles beyond this point. Clearwater City Ordinance 22.43. On the bike trail, there are 3 more. I think that's overkill. 1800 block of Drew Street in front of a little strip mall, no parking on grass or right of way. A few feet later, there's another one, overkill. Coachman and Drew, northeast Coachman, there's a huge billboard for a law firm. If you keep going on Coachman down by the railroad tracks, there's another huge billboard for a law firm. I think those billboards were outlawed and taken down except for those 2. These are just a couple of examples. 2 more on Island Way. There are signs encouraging joining the Civic Association. Not necessary. Like breaking out this or blocking out the scenery. If I can switch really quickly to another subject, I wish you would get after the forestry department to get the morning glory plants out of the mangroves. This is an invasive plant. It grows very, very quickly. They get cleaned out every 2 or 3 years. I'd like to see it happen more often. Thank you for your time and your consideration. I still got 6 seconds left.
Thank you, Mr. Van Sloten. Just one issue, Jack Russell is still partially standing, and St. Pete College and Clearwater High do play there. So that's one of the reasons for that sign. The rest I can't speak to yet. Anyone else for citizens to be heard? Please come forward, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Maria Haiti, and I will forever lament that I didn't sign up for Toastmasters. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today. I think we're all drawn here because we have a calling to serve. And Clearwater has been my home for since 2004 until 2014, when there were some issues that happened that, in fact, I lost my home while I was on vacation. And I wasn't able to ever ascertain the reasons why, because no one would return my phone calls. My family wasn't forthcoming, and I was told to call the police. So I did, and the police told me to call attorneys, that it was a civil matter, and then the attorneys said to call the police. So I was on an endless merry-go-round for years. And ultimately, I left Clearwater. I found out my condo was actually, with everything in it, was sold without my knowledge, and apparently signatures must have been forged. But I left, and it put me on a different path. And I would like to say that that I went willingly, but actually I was dragged, like from the back of a truck. And I became homeless. And here I had so much, and my parents were extremely wealthy. And I lost everything. And instead of having billionaires for dinner at my house, I was serving breakfast to the homeless in Long Beach, California. Instead of doing brain and spinal cord research in the medical field, I was actually the quintessential patient, because I was sprayed with a pesticide. So instead of my legal studies, I ended up being a defendant in over a dozen lawsuits. So you see, sometimes we have to have the extreme in order for us to see both sides. And so we each have a gift. And you all have wonderful gifts here. And that's why Clearwater is the home that I have missed so desperately. And so I've come back to see what it is that can be done, and to get the information that I wasn't given before. And so I think we all have gifts, and we need, in this time, especially the time of the pandemic, when people are hurting so much, I think it's more important than ever that we all join together. And because I have been on both sides of many issues, I offer you my gifts, in that I would love to help out in any way I can. Because, That's it.
Your time's up.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Well, we have a lot of volunteer opportunities
Okay.
throughout the city of Clearwater, and our volunteers are really one of the components that makes it a great city.
Wonderful. What I was going to say is that the legal system is so adversarial, and I think that it can be unified, where it doesn't have to be one winner, one loser. We can all win to some extent. So anyway, that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Haiti,
Yes.
for coming out.
Yes, well, thank you for allowing me to speak my truth.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else for citizens to be heard? Okay. Any items from the consent agenda to be removed? Items 6.1 through 6.11 by the council or by citizens? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Move to approve consent agenda items 6.1 through 6.11.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 7.1.
Declare surplus for the purpose of sale for development of affordable housing, real property located at 601, 619, 637, 655, and 673 Blanche B. Littlejohn Trail, and approve the contract between the city and Habitat for Humanity of Pinellas County.
Thank you. Chuck Lane, Economic Development and Housing Department. As discussed on Monday's work session, this contract states that the city will sell these lots to Habitat for Humanity of Pinellas County for $20,000 each for a total sales price of $100,000. Habitat will construct 5 homes, with each home meeting the city's definition of workforce or affordable housing. The property is not needed for city purposes. It's comprised of 5 contiguous lots, and it's also adjacent to a new home built by Habitat in 2021. So the entire western edge of this block facing Pinellas Trail will be all new single-family homes. The block also lies directly across the trail from the 12 homes that Habitat completed a couple years back, as you might remember. They've done a lot of great work over the last 5 years to improve this neighborhood. Mike Sutton, the CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Pinellas County, is here this evening if you have any questions for him, and I'll take questions at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Lane? Councilmember Albritton.
Yes, since our work session on Monday, I had a chance to talk to Whit Blanton on 2 of these lots that were zoned industrial.
Yes, sir.
That would have had there was an issue with them taking a while to be able to convert. I think any kind of affordable housing is great in Clearwater, and this is a great deal for Habitat. They did do a beautiful job in our community. Whit said, no, it wouldn't take a year, 60 days at the most. We'd have to vote on council to give the request to Ford Pinellas. Ford Pinellas, he thinks, would take 30 days to vote, turn it around, and then those could be put back as residential units. So just a heads up on that.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a city process, there's a process with the county, and I think Planning and Development has dedicated an employee to address this specifically, so hopefully we can get through it quickly.
Very good.
Other questions? Mr. Sutton, would you like to speak? Or just pass it?
Yeah, I'm just passing through.
Anyone from the public to speak to this item? Do I have a motion?
I am very happy to move to approve agenda item 7.1.
And I equally as happily second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 7.2.
Approve the First Amendment to an existing
Congratulations.
development agreement between AP Beach Properties LLC and the City of Clearwater for property located at 401, 405, 415, 419 Coronado Drive, and adopt Resolution 22-01.
Good evening, Gina Clayton, Planning and Development. In 2014, a development agreement authorizing the use of 100 units from the hotel density reserve for a 166-unit hotel was approved for this site. It was at 1.32 acres in area. The owner at this time would like to amend the agreement to incorporate the 3 parcels you see in pink up on the screen. Those total 0.44 acres. All of those properties have had all their development rights transferred off. And this new enlarged site would be 1.759 acres, and it will enable a redesign project with a larger setback and less building mass up on Coronado Drive and a more efficient parking layout. The effective density of the site will actually be reduced with this from 126 units per acre down to 94. They will provide the required 199 parking spaces for the hotel, as well as another 50 that would be open to the public. This new conceptual site plan and elevations appear at this point to be consistent with Beach by Design and the Community Development Code. However, this will have to be reviewed by the CDB for final approval. Staff is supportive, and we're recommending approval of resolution number 2201. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Clayton? Anyone from the public to speak to item 7.2? Do I have a motion?
I move to approve item 7.2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 8.1.
There's a resolution, Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Resolution 22-01, a resolution of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending a development agreement between the City of Clearwater and AP Beach Properties, LLC, providing an effective date.
Anyone to speak to the resolution? Motion?
I move to adopt resolution 22-01.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 8.1.
Ordinance number 9514-22, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, making amendments to the Community Development Code by amending Section 3-920, affordable housing incentives to provide incremental density bonuses for mixed-income projects between 15 and 25% affordable housing units, to allow additional off-street parking reductions for affordable housing units near transit stops, providing certain frequency of service, to establish long-term bicycle parking requirements for those affordable housing units, providing reduced off-street parking, and to add a new subsection C, affordable housing fee reductions, repealing Article 3, Division 11, home occupations, adopting a new Article 3, Division 11, home-based businesses, which establishes standards for all home-based businesses consistent with Florida Statute 559.955 and ensures consistency with residential character by clarifying types of unpermitted businesses, limiting business size and number of outside employees, and addressing certain operational characteristics, parking location, and other similar requirements. Amending Section 5-201, powers and duties, to clarify and affirm that the Community Development Board is the city's design review board. Amending Section 8-102, definitions, by deleting home occupation, adding home-based business. Amending Appendix A, schedule of fees, rates, and charges. Section 5, buildings and building regulations, Section 47.087, to revise fee reductions for use of private providers and establish a fee reduction for affordable housing projects. Amending Appendix B, U.S. 19 District and Development Standards, Section B-303.C, Table 3, to add affordable housing as a factor for reducing required parking, making other administrative changes, certifying consistency with the city's comprehensive plan and proper advertisement, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Well done, you. Anyone to speak to the ordinance? I have a motion.
Move to adopt ordinance 9514-22 on second reading.
I wanted to make just a couple comments.
Okay.
So I'm happy about that ordinance, even though it was really long and strung together. But I made a couple notes that I just wanted to put on the record. So I am so happy and proud that our city is taking solid steps to incentivize more affordable, attainable housing development here for our residents. We are establishing a prorated increase to the density bonus that corresponds to each additional percent of affordable housing units provided in mixed-use developments. All of that is good. It's a win for developers. It's a win for residents. We're also providing additional reductions in required off-street parking for designated affordable housing units. And this is good because parking increases the cost to the builder. It often impacts the amenities that residents are offered. And ideally, affordable housing developments will be located near employment hubs and on public transit routes, so they won't have a need for as many parking spots. And so that's what we want to encourage here in Clearwater. I think it's most exciting that we have plan review and permit fees for 1- and 2-family residential affordable housing projects. Once they're certified by our Economic Development and Housing Department, will be reduced by 75%. That's significant. And the multimodal fee impact is being reduced, so that's good. I also read that they're incentivizing EV charging stations and incentivizing solar-covered parking spots. Both are within the US 19 district, and that's a start for Greenprint, and it's all good news. And I just wanted to thank our, well, some of it is state, you know, but some of it is our planning department and our city that's taken these initiatives, so it's really good. So I'm happy to second it, and
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. 9.1.
Council members, before we go to 9.1, I forgot to read a comment that was submitted. I know that the council has seen it through e-comments, but
Okay.
it's all right. A comment was submitted by Elisa Lanza. Dear Honorable City Council, City Manager, City Attorney, and City Clerk, for the record, I am submitting the following questions. Does the City of Clearwater have a written procedure for the recruitment of candidates for city boards? Does the City of Clearwater consider the announcements, advertisement for a board vacancy the same as recruiting for the open seat? Does the City of Clearwater offer training on the Clearwater and Pinellas County Comprehensive Plans to the CDB and Advisory Board members? Does the City of Clearwater offer training on Robert's Rules of Order, Parliamentary Procedure to City Board members? Does the city offer State of Florida ethics training to elected officials, staff, and board members? Does the city require elected officials, staff, and board members to sign and submit a conflict of interest form? Has the city hired a person committee to review the Florida F1 financial disclosure reports for completeness and accuracy? B, confirm the person has taken the required 4 hours of State of Florida ethics training. And 8, does the City of Clearwater provide electronic access to the completed and submitted Florida F1 financial disclosure reports?
We'll get a email back to Ms. Lands on all of those.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Item 9.1, amend City Council Rule 6, Order of Business, and adopt Resolution 22-03.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. What I am proposing before you tonight is a simple change to the motion process for agenda items with ordinances and/or resolutions. Essentially, what it would be is agenda items will be presented by the city manager and/or and any staff designee of his or her choosing, followed by questions by the council, public input, discussion, comments, in order to give the city manager an opportunity to comment on items. So.
Okay. Any questions for the city manager on this item? Anyone from the public to speak to item 9.1? I have a motion.
is it me? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve agenda item 9.1.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Margolis.
Resolution number 22-03, a resolution of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending council rules, providing an effective date.
Motion.
Move to adopt resolution 22-03.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. 9.2.
Appoint 3 individuals to the Marine Advisory Board to fill the remainder of unexpired terms through May 31st, 2023, and 2 through May 31st, 2023, and 1 member through July 31st, 2023. Council members, in your agenda packs, you had applications for Julia Battaglia, Dina Stanley, and Stephen Boris for your consideration. I just need to know how you would like to appoint them to which terms.
What's your pleasure?
Well, when I look at this, I realize Ms. Battaglia had Marine Advisory Board as her only choice. Mr. Voris has Marine Advisory Board as his first choice. And Ms. Stanley has Environmental Board as her first choice, but Marine is her second choice. So I would say, I would recommend that we put Ms. Stanley in the unexpired term and the other 2 on as full term. And when, if an opportunity for Ms. Stanley to move to the Environmental Board happens, or if her term expires and then
There won't be as much unexpired.
there won't be as much exposure, right? That would be my recommendation.
Is everyone comfortable with that?
I'm fine with that.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
Motion to that effect.
Second.
or motion to approve agenda item 9.2 with Ms. Stanley being appointed to the unexpired term.
Anyone from the public to speak to item 9.2? Seeing none, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 9.3.
Appoint 3 members to the Community Development Board with terms to expire February 28, 2026. Council members, in your agenda pack, you have 7 applications for your consideration. You had Mr. Andrew Caudell, a general contractor, Brenda Dallas Griffith in real estate, David J. in real estate. He's also an investor developer. William Johnson, a former council member and project manager, Travis Norton, a community relations, Nicholas West, political analyst, Andrew Winkler, a financial advisor, and Bruce Rector, corporate general counsel. I would like to note that according to the development code, the city commission shall seek a membership with diverse economic, social, and professional representation, and shall include members qualified and experienced in the fields of architecture, planning, landscape architecture, engineering, construction, planning and land use law, and real estate law. Council staff is asking a consideration to continue the item to the next meeting. Planning would like the opportunity to seek either a professional in the engineering, planning, or real estate law background, if it's possible.
Okay. Is everyone comfortable with continuing?
I am.
Okay. Do I have a motion to continue item 9.3?
So moved.
Well, before we continue, I mean, does continuing mean we can't have a discussion on this agenda item at all? Or,
Well, we can have a discussion, but it seems premature if we're looking for other members and we don't know who those members are going to be. I think we need to see if staff and council, for that matter, can find some of the people that fill those qualifications. Without seeing a full slate, I just think it's premature to talk about who we have.
well, I was thinking about not talking about the candidates, but more talking about the process and some of the things I've learned in my discussions with Mr. Margolis. And so, barring any discussion of particular candidates, just about the board in general and some of the language, and how is the city going to go out and solicit more candidates? So that's what I thought maybe we could talk about a little bit tonight. It's only 6:30. You know,
Okay,
so
I'm also opening it up to citizens
Okay.
regardless if we
okay.
continue it, obviously, because some people may be here that want to speak to it. So let me have them come up. If anyone from the public wants to speak to item 9.3, you're welcome to come up at this time.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, Attorney Margolis, and City Manager Jennings, and the rest of the staff. I am Chris Michaelek. I live at 855 Bayway Boulevard in Clearwater Point. And as you have been receiving from me the last week, I have major concerns about the appointments for the CDB. Specifically, as I shared with each of you in an email, I think it's critically important that we make sure that the candidates that you come before you understand what the role of the CDB is. Number 2, understand the code, have some understanding of the code. And number 3, this is critically important also, that they are involved in their community, that they understand Clearwater. I want to support what Ms. Call mentioned earlier, the directive to have diversity. And I want you to also consider the diversity in the broad sense of the word. With that in mind, I've put together, as you can see, a chart. And I went through spent a tedious amount of time going through all the candidates, and I indicated at the top, of course, we have the current serving members, and the bottom we have the 8 candidates. Number 1, their name. Number 2, their profession and their employer. I think that's critically important. Number 3, special skills and expertise that they have. Number 4, board service involvement, that is including not only here in Clearwater, but it also includes within their community. And number 5, which I think is important, is to note that we want to know where they live. I'm sure all of the council members want to ensure that our board represents all of Clearwater. Specifically, we do not want, and I'm not going to pick on Countryside, but we don't want 3 candidates from Countryside on the board. We would like to make sure that everyone has the opportunity. Towards that end, I am really excited to know that we are going to be looking at this further. And I should share with you that, and Mr. Jennings is aware of this, that I got in touch with Joelle Costelli asking how exactly do we recruit these candidates? Do we do a broad search? Do we advertise? Do we put it, as an example, I read the Bee newspaper, which I know a lot of people do, and very often there's nothing about what's going on here. As an example, Mayor, you had a chat several months ago. I heard about that in the Bee. When I looked on the calendar, I couldn't find it on the city calendar. And I know, thank you, Manager Jennings, he's looking at how to make the calendar more customer friendly. So I'm hoping that the search going forward will be broad, that it will look at the diversity in the sense of inclusion, looking at neighborhood, looking at profession, and looking at the qualifications of what people can do to serve our city and to make our city a place of good, with a good reputation. Thank you so much.
Anyone else to speak to this item?
I have any comments?
Comment?
Lisa Lanza submitted a comment. Questions about the CDB special qualifications. Registered voter does not signify where the person must be registered. Members shall be diverse economic, social, and professional representation, qualified and experienced in fields of architecture, planning, landscape architecture, engineering, construction, planning, and land use law, or real estate. Question. Would the City Council consider amending the ordinance which governs this board to require that at least one American Institute certified planner be required to sit on this board to represent the citizens of Clearwater? Question, would City Council consider renaming the board as the Planning and Zoning Board so it is clear to the citizens what this board is responsible for handling, i.e. primarily planning and zoning?
Councilmember Beckman, what else did you want to discuss?
Okay, so what I wanted to say, first of all, I would like an answer to, I guess, Ms. Mikulak's question is, what does the search, so if we give it another 2 weeks, what does the search look like to open it up for more candidates or to recruit candidates? What will that look like? And so I'd like to understand that a little bit more. And then a discussion about the description of board members who will, represent a diverse social, economic, and professional members shall be diverse, economic, social, and professional representation, qualified and experienced in the fields of, and then we go on. So part of my thought is when I looked at these applications, and there's no way to identify, the diversity of social, economic, or, well, professional, I guess we can, but what does social and economic diversity look like, and how might it be indicated on this application for this advisory board? And this application for this, all of our advisory boards are important, but this one has these quasi-judicial duties. It's the same application that we have for the library advisory board or the EAB or the Parks and Rec. And I know that I've been told that the next work session, I'll lead a discussion on really looking at our advisory board process, how we select them, what the application is, what their function is, what can we, all those kinds of things that I hope to have a robust discussion. But as we look at these candidates for this board, how do we determine those qualities that they're supposed to represent when we don't have information on the application? Now, I went through this weekend and called the applicants, and I spoke to all but 2. One, the only woman on the, as the candidates, Miss Brenda Dallas Griffith, didn't have a working number, and and another one, Mr. Caudell didn't return, I left a message and we didn't connect. But, I asked some different questions, and I asked, it says here that our membership is supposed to represent diversity in social, economic, and professional. How might you fill that? What does that mean to you? And so I think as we look at candidates and make recommendations in a couple weeks, I think we need to look at, what does it say our board is supposed to be, and how are we going to reach that goal of making that board diverse, economic, socially, and professionally? The other thing that I learned that was really interesting is that the Pinellas County School District is entitled to appoint a member to this board. Did you, I didn't know that. And so that's pretty interesting. And what might that look like? I can't imagine that the Pinellas County Schools would appoint one of their school board members because their plates are way full. But could they appoint someone who works within the Pinellas County Schools but lives in Clearwater on the board? Maybe that person would represent, families or children and I know that they have set parameters and decisions, but they would come at it with that kind of a diverse, social or economic perspective. They might check off that box. So that was interesting, something that I learned. The other thing I learned is that we can make up whoever we want to be on this board. And if we choose to have someone up there that is an environmental specialist or certified in sustainability or whatever we might want, we can do that. And I think we're acutely aware that our residents question and are concerned about increased development that abuts up to residents in our community. And because we are so built out, it's inevitable that we're going to have these kinds of situations come before us. And when we see this board that may be stacked with developers and or realtor, people associated with real estate, I think that only, adds fuel to that sense of, a sense of power or seat at the table that our residents might have. So I think we need to be, cognizant of that. Let's see, what else? Oh, the other thing I learned was that, for example, Mr. Margolis and I had a great conversation today, and he explained that in Orlando, where he came from, or where he last practiced, I don't think he came from Orlando, but anyway, their community development board was really broken into two functions. One that would analyze statute and language and amendments to the code, and another then that their task would be to look at these flexibility and development issues as they come up. And so it wouldn't be this long list of tasks for one board, but it would be split into two different ones. So I think, in looking at this real dicey board, this hot seat board, there might be ways to approach it to soothe residents' concerns a little bit, and I think it's worth a discussion at some point before we even talk about who is here. But if we don't have a plan right now about how to reach out and engage more candidates or diverse candidates, and maybe it has something to do with the time the meetings are or the demands of meetings, I don't know, but it'll be interesting to hear how the city plans to go out and recruit more applicants for this position, or these three positions.
Well, language matters. I
What
get
did
a
I
little
use?
bit
Okay.
queasy when you start saying dicey and stacked. I don't think it's a dicey board. I think one of the things that people don't understand, and by the way, two of us up here sat on that board before being elected, so might have a little bit more insight than some who haven't. But
I agree.
no. it is a quasi-judicial board, which a lot of people do not understand. Meaning that they really are interpreting our code. And if we don't like decisions that they're making, or we're concerned that commercial is starting to come closer and not be appropriate against residential, then it's incumbent upon us as a city council to change the code. I have seen legislative decisions being made on the CDB, which is, they're just incorrect. We have certain decisions that we can make up here that are legislative. They meet a lot of criteria, but we just don't like it, we can vote against it. And then occasionally, we have quasi-judicial hearings that come before the city council, because we are level 3. The CDB, Community Development Board, is level 2. When it comes to us as a quasi-judicial hearing, we too have to make a decision of interpreting and making certain that we're following our own code. If we don't, that will get challenged in court and potentially overturned. Even the council can be overturned. And sometimes the CDB makes decisions that people like, and that gets challenged, and ultimately, it gets decided at a higher power, and it usually gets kicked back to the CDB. I thank all of our boards, and I thank all of our volunteers. They're all incredibly important. This is probably the board with the most responsibility. I won't say it's the most important, but I do think it has the most responsibility by a long shot. We do orientation for all of the board members. It probably should even be more in-depth than it is. But they're making pretty heady decisions, and you need to try to fill all the professional positions, because they are the ones that are going to hold developers' feet to the fire on certain criteria and see where there are going to be problems potentially. So I want it to be a diverse board, but I also want it to be filled with people that actually understand blueprints and designs and density and intensity and massing and traffic and all of the ramifications that come with that. So I think, to me, there's a hierarchy of professionals first on this board, and then, filling out the other, checking the other boxes. I think it's important to have geographic diversity, but if we can't find an engineer or an architect in a certain area of town, then I'm going to take them from another area of town, even if we're overloaded with people geographically that live in that area. And if people aren't following our code and following the quasi-judicial process, that's something then that we need to look at as a city council. And if somebody is not acting appropriately on a consistent basis, then maybe they need to be asked to step down. So, Vice Mayor, and then.
Well, I echo a lot of what you said, Mayor. It is quasi-judicial. They have their own attorney that guides them and makes sure that they have to make their decisions based on the rule of law in a quasi-judicial. They have to apply the code. They have to, take all the other aspects into account. And based on the rule of law is where they need to be with their decision. If we totally changed this board and didn't have professionals on it, and we had people who don't have these professional expertise, they're liable to make some decisions based on aesthetics that don't stand up, and it gets appealed, and probably, and we have more appeals and things getting overturned on appeal because of that. That's why we need to make sure we have people who, professionals that understand the whole concept. The only other aspect I want to address, because it's been brought up by a couple different points tonight, is conflicts of interest. If we have a conflict of interest, we are required by law to say we have a conflict on this matter. Mr. Margolis, and prior to him, Ms. Aiken, were always responsible for making sure we didn't have a conflict. Because if we did, the penalties are severe. If we don't have a conflict, it is not that the fact that we don't declare we have no conflict means we have no conflict. When we have a conflict is when we have to publicly state, I have a conflict of interest on this item and therefore I will not be voting and participating in the discussion. That's how the process works. So, it is, that is how it is and how we operate.
Councilmember Albritton.
Well, having served on that board, I can tell you that it's, what I had never liked seeing was a disagreement where board members wanted to change the code. I mean, it is up to us to understand and read the code and make a decision based on what the code says, not on what we hoped it would be. And again, I mean, you kind of covered that, Mayor, when you said that, we're level 3 on council. If something needs to be changed, we're the ones that need to make that change, not the CDB. So I'm in agreement with, what has already been said. I'm not going to repeat it, but just to me, that was very important, is to make sure we're not making any, when we're deciding something, not making any changes to what our current code was, whether we like it or not.
Councilmember Bunker.
We do need professionals on the board. That's clear. But I think it might be good to amend this to put in somebody who's an environmentalist and somebody who's considering the neighborhood. We'll have plenty of people who are engineers and know the laws and things that somebody in the neighborhood may not know, that they can set them straight, but it'd be good to have a champion for our neighborhood on the board as well. So I'd like to see us move forward with that type of agenda to see if we want to add other people to work with the professionals. Because the public sees politicians who are developers. Mayor's son, former mayor's son, is the lawyer for most developers, it seems. And that's the way you get that good old boy network feeling that the public has. And no disrespect to anybody here. But that's the type of thing that the people in the community feel. And if we can show that we're paying attention to the neighborhoods, I think that would be a really strong, important thing to do.
Councilmember Beckman.
So it's interesting. So I have two different ways of looking at this now. So if we're looking at professionals and having some diversity on there, I'm thinking, okay, how about if we have someone from Forward Pinellas sit on the board? And then have someone who's some kind of an environmental, background sit on the board, to have professional diversity of perspective. But then when the conversation goes to, they are here to interpret our code, and if we don't like those decisions, it's on us to change the code. And they are here to interpret and follow our code. And I'm thinking, okay, well then, why don't we treat them just like a jury in a court of law? You're here to hear this case. Here are the facts of the case. Here's the law that you need to follow in order to make a jury verdict decision. Why is this any different? Why do we developers and builders and real estate and blah, 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 if they're here to read and interpret language, and they've all got an onboarding process, right? And, you know, an orientation process, they can all read English, and why do they have to have that professional background if all they're doing is interpreting code? It comes in when there is judgment with questions about flexibility and/or interpretation of must conform to the aesthetics of the surrounding area, things like that that are left up to judgment. And those things, you know, those things are where we need people, everyday people, to be able to look at things like that. And I would say, and one of my, you know, you said that they all have an orientation process. I mean, that's kind of new to me. I'd like to know what it is. But I think one of the, if it's not already there, especially for this board, is a robust, thorough, and easy to understand orientation process about those subjective decisions that have been made recently that have been tough for residents and developers, and that we look at them from maybe another jurisdiction, and we look at them all together, and we have the discussion based on whatever happened in Miami or Orlando or whatever, and we come to an understanding of what does it mean to conform to surrounding, you know, structures, and then we move forward with our specific ones after we've had that discussion and onboarding related to something, a test case or something. But, you know, if we're saying they're just here to follow the code, then why do we need professional representation, you know?
Well, if you look at our code book, which is about this thick, for those who haven't seen it, there is a lot of technical data in there, and people who are actually in the industries have a better understanding. There is an enormous learning curve for being on this board. Even if you are accustomed to being in the construction industry, when our code changed to be a redevelopment code, we got a lot more. We're not as prescriptive, we're much more flexible because we knew that something was going to be torn down and replaced with something else. And so I think that that was a blessing and a curse at the same time, because it eliminates certainty to an extent. Whereas with greenfield development, it's relatively easy. You don't have neighbors yet, and things get built according to a very prescriptive code. But we knew that that was more difficult in a city that is, you know, over 100 years old, and we have aging structures that have to get replaced. I would also say something about putting labels on different candidates. I don't think being concerned about neighborhoods and being an architect, or being concerned about neighborhoods and being an engineer, or being, you know, a land use attorney and caring about the environment are mutually exclusive.
I agree.
People might actually be multifaceted and be able to be concerned about all those things. And, you know, we had the comment before that, you know, we need residents on this board. They're all residents. You can't be on this board if you're not a resident. So I just want to make sure people understand that. All of these people live in neighborhoods. I think they care about neighborhoods. And they're also expending an awful lot of time. To get prepared for these meetings, you spend a lot of time. Oftentimes going out to the sites and actually seeing what is adjacent to the development, the roads and everything else, if you're doing it right.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not saying everybody does, but there's a lot of people that do, and those who do, you know. So, anything else? All right, well, we'll talk about this at the next meeting. I will now open it up for closing comments. We'll start with Councilmember Bunker.
city
Council,
attorney.
There was a motion, but no second. If you,
Oh, to continue.
I can do it by consensus as well, but I can't have both.
Can I have a motion? Who made the motion?
Motion to continue until the next meeting, agenda item 9.3,
To February 17th.
until February 17th.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bunker.
Well, it's always nice to have a spirited conversation, and I meant no disrespect to anybody in my comments. I also wanted to say that last week I couldn't be here, but I was watching from my hospital bed. Nothing major, but thanks to all the doctors and nurses at Morton Plant, I am back here in tip-top shape. I did vote along with everybody, but I don't think my votes got recorded. Other than that, a big shout out to the Clearwater High School football team who had a winning season, and apparently 12 of the graduating members signed some really nice scholarship proposals yesterday. So congratulations to all of them.
Councilmember Beckman.
I just wanted to say, I'm super happy with those affordable housing initiatives. Thank you to our communications department for putting the Go Vote signs up after we sadly took the Go Bucks signs down. I'm excited that there's, a blues music festival or kind of weekend on Cleveland Street. And so you can come out and walk Cleveland Street and listen to live music, and then continue to get involved, reach out with your ideas, and check your voter registration and sign up to vote by mail.
Councilmember Albritton.
So I started the week out with a trip to Tallahassee. It was a successful trip, I think, talking with our representatives regarding Clearwater's legislative priorities. We had a busy day speaking with Representative DeSigley, Senator Hooper, Representative Linda Cheney, Stan McLean, and Florida CFO Jimmy Petronas. We spoke on a combination of legislative priorities, included opposition to vacation rental preemption bill and the state's erosion of home rule. Also had the opportunity to address support for Clearwater's Intermodal Center in the upcoming federal raise grant application, which is due this year on April the 16th. It's coming quick. We already have the application. We're filling it out, so we're going to get a lot of other support letters for that and go at it really hard this time. This go-round, PSTA is asking for $15 million, with the rest of the $25 million total cost being split by PSTA and the Florida DOT. Yesterday, I accompanied Samuel Huckins, the president of the Clearwater Beach Association, while he took center stage addressing the Community Affairs Committee in opposition to the preemption rental bill. The bill barely passed the committee vote with the promise to change some of the wording, which we'll see on future committees. We have a chance next week to oppose the bill when the League of Cities is in Tallahassee, and I think a few of us are going next week as well. So I would say that get to talk to as many of our representatives and tell them what we need in Clearwater would be a good idea. Thank you.
Or to leave us alone.
Yeah.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I appreciate your being in Tallahassee, and I know the mayor and I are going to be up on Monday and Tuesday next week, so we'll be reinforcing what you said, and maybe have a couple other twists of their arm for some stuff, so we'll see what happens. But we're getting close. We have 80-degree weather today. We're just around the corner from our spring break. Our traffic is really going to start increasing. So have patience and realize that all that increased traffic and all those out-of-state license plates represent dollars spent in this city that create revenue for this city that the citizens don't have to create. So don't forget that.
I want to thank the Clearwater Rotary Club. They had a fundraiser for their endowment, and it was to honor Mr. Horn, who was a longtime member. And their endowment is approaching $1.6 million, and they give money away every year to good charities. So I want to thank Island Way Grill and their management there. They called me out of the blue last weekend and said that they had a big party that did not consume all the food and wanted to get it to one of the cold shelters that was going to be open Saturday night. And fortunately, we got that food to those folks, and that was really a nice thing. They could have just thrown it away, but it was a really good thing for the community. We do want to thank all those and congratulate the young men that got scholarships at Clearwater High School, Countryside, CCC, and Calvary. Always exciting. And then I also want to express my condolences to the Bieber family who lost their sister, their daughter. We have two of the officers that are officers in this city, and it's just a tragic loss. And so our prayers will continue to be with that family as they deal with their grieving. And with that, we are adjourned. God bless. Be nice to each other.